I'm a mother of 4. I'm a Kansan. And 2 of my children are receiving gender-affirming care.
Do a little bit of arithmetic. So a while back, Disney executive mentioned on video, she said, well, I have 2 children, 5 and 7. One is trans and the other is pansexual. And I just thought mathematically right away, it's like the chance you have a trans kid is 1 in 3,000. That's not a very high chance. And let's say the chance that you have a pansexual kid is the same, whatever pansexual means. But whatever that is rarer than trans, because no one ever even heard about it until 5 years ago. So the joint probability that you have a trans kid and a pansexual kid is 1 in 9 million. The odds that you're a pathological narcissist sacrificing your own children to the glorification of your compassion is 8,999,999 to 1. So like, do you have a trans kid and a pansexual kid? Or are you a devouring mother?
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be discussing the United States versus Skrmetti outcome over in Tennessee that's centered around a discussion about gender-affirming care for minors. We're going to explore a little bit about the case, what it's about, what the outcome was, what the arguments were, and react to a couple of videos as well that center around this subject. But before we get started, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I can't tell you how grateful I am for all the support that I've gotten so far from everybody. Understanding that, not everybody agrees about everything all the time, especially regarding these topics. And, this one with the minors and the transition thing is a big one. And I think it's something that we need to be talking about more than we have been. And what's really going on here? What is really the core issue? Instead of going for just the basic talking points from trans radical activists and, that everybody is going to die if they don't have access to this care. I mean, that's kind of an absurd take, but they continue to kind of peddle that. And I think that that's what's ultimately helping them lose. There's a lot of lying going on and a lot of stretching of the truth, exaggerations about what this care is, what it actually does, what it really means. And when we're talking about the different drugs that these children have been given, it's been kind of all a big experiment. And I don't think it's working in their favor at this point. And, this is why the argument for so long has been let kids be kids, let kids grow up, let kids make decisions when they become adults, and that kids cannot consent. So to give an overview of this case, the core argument in the United States versus Skrmetti was centered on whether a Tennessee law SB 1 banning certain medical treatments for transgender minors violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. And kind of a breakdown is that it's sex-based discrimination and discrimination based on transgender status, and most notably, harm to minors. They emphasize the potential harm to transgender minors who are denied necessary medical care for gender dysphoria, citing evidence that gender-affirming care can alleviate distress and improve mental health, which I think we've found out along the way that there's really not that much evidence to suggest that. So I found it very interesting that they chose to go that route with this. And I think it's actually backfired, quite honestly. I really, really do. It's really starting to fall apart, I think, for these TRAs that just keep pushing and pushing and pushing for some of this stuff. But when it comes to children, this is a territory that we said to stay away from to begin with, that most people agreed that it was a bad idea to drag kids into this movement, and they did it anyways, and here we are. Now, the argument from the other side was that, of course, that it's not sex-based discrimination, and that Tennessee asserted that the law should be subject to a lower standard of review because it didn't target a protected class. And they also claimed that they have a right to regulate medicine, and it was valid to exercise that power. And again, most notably, medical uncertainty. Concerns were raised about the potential long-term effects of these treatments on minors. And so if you didn't know already, it was a 6-3 ruling that the Tennessee law didn't violate the Equal Protections Clause. I think part of the problem too is that this is what happens when you play identity politics too much. And you can see that they continued to do that even walking into the courtroom, because they hired a lawyer that's the first known transgender lawyer to argue in the Supreme Court over such issues. And it's like, that's not a coincidence. They did that on purpose. And again, I think that's something that really backfires, especially when the person that you put up there to do this has admitted that they don't even believe in the Constitution. You heard me right. So if you look into this individual, their name is Chase Strangio, and they are an attorney and they are part of the ACLU. Strangio has described himself as a constitutional lawyer who fundamentally doesn't believe in the Constitution. It's just unbelievable. And there's more. He's called civil marriage a fundamentally violent institution. This is the total wingnut radical. And that he disagrees with the idea that transgender women could be born with a male body, saying there is no such thing as a male body and that a penis is not a male body part. It's just an unusual body part for a woman. This is the lawyer that they've got arguing in court that transgender care for minors is a good idea and it's healthy. This is the mindset of this individual. And they thought they were going to win this case. Did they really think they were going to have a shot at this? I mean, it's actually, I can't believe this is the world that we live in, and that these are the people that you're propping up to be representatives of the trans community. This is why you're losing. Just from what I read there, I'm extremely skeptical, if not actually kind of frightened that someone would actually believe that that having a penis is just an unusual woman's body part. I mean, this is some twisted, diluted thinking.
We're here at the United States Supreme Court today. It's cold outside. We are getting ready to have oral argument in our case challenging Tennessee's categorical ban on medical care for transgender adolescents. I will be presenting argument in defense of our clients, 3 trans adolescents and their parents, and a doctor in Tennessee who provides this care. The United States, through the Solicitor General, will also be arguing that this law violates the Equal Protection Clause. So today is a big moment in trans history. We are honored to be here and fight on behalf of all trans youth.
I can't. I don't know. I really think this is all just like crazy woke activism and just semantics and charades, and it's a circus. Now, one of the things that I want to make clear and make note of is that the court did not decide if transgender people are a protected class, and the ruling left open the possibility of future challenges based on parental rights, which I think that is absolutely going to backfire. I absolutely think they're going to go for it because they're stupid and they won't stop doing this. They won't stop arguing about it. They won't stop pushing when clearly they're on losing battleground, especially when it comes to minors. Like, for sure, they totally are. I mean, we've got a whole generation of detransitioners. We have parents who've actually been hurt by this. So if you can pick out and pluck a few parents out that are all for this and they're all on the side of like, yeah, I want to trans my kid, you're going to find 10 or 20 more who argue that it's not good and see the damage that it's actually done. So again, I think it's going to backfire. And maybe that's what needs to happen. Maybe they just need to literally bury themselves all the way through the court system and continue to build case law that actually is going to be built up against trans radical activists over the course of time. I mean, one of the things that they're talking about more and more now is a form of Munchausen's by proxy. They're calling it Transhausen by proxy. And that some of these parents are like delusional thinkers that want to have the attention of having a trans child. You see all kinds of celebrities out there that have all these trans children. All of a sudden, they've cropped up everywhere. There's tons and tons of them. I think it's a real strange phenomenon. It's a social contagion that's occurring. I want to react to this clip with you that I found on Instagram that's in relation to all this stuff about parents and having trans children. It's quite compelling.
I'm a mother of 4. I'm a Kansan. And 2 of my children are receiving gender-affirming care.
Do a little bit of arithmetic. So a while back, Disney executive mentioned on video, she said, well, I have 2 children, 5 and 7. One is trans and the other is pansexual. And I just thought mathematically right away, it's like the chance you have a trans kid is 1 in 3,000. That's not a very high chance. And let's say the chance that you have a pansexual kid is the same, whatever pansexual means. But whatever that is rarer than trans, because no one ever even heard about it until 5 years ago. So the joint probability that you have a trans kid and a pansexual kid is 1 in 9 million. The odds that you're a pathological narcissist sacrificing your own children to the glorification of your compassion is 8,999,999 to 1. So, like, do you have a trans kid and a pansexual kid, or are you a devouring mother?
This is what I mean about it backfiring, is what they're going to find out if they keep going down the path of going through these court systems. They're going to tell on themselves. They're going to expose themselves further. And like I said, build more case law against them. People that are jumping all over this bandwagon thinking that there's some social justice warrior crusader or helping little trans kids need to take a long ass look at what's really going on behind the curtain there. And one of the things is that not only are they lying, but they're hiding information. Check this part out.
This was Dr. Johanna Elson Kennedy, and she hid research that indicated there were no mental health benefits to administering puberty blockers for transitioning minors. And this experiment involved 95 kids getting puberty blockers, average age 11, and it showed no mental health improvements to be spoken of. But she sat on that because apparently it didn't comport with her political beliefs. And I talked to a nurse at the organization Do No Harm, which is an association that fights woke policies in medicine. And this nurse said that that decision to hold that research and to hide it hurt children, it hurt parents, and it bordered on malpractice. And oh, by the way, it's kind of important to talk about the mental health benefits or lack thereof of puberty blockers, because that seems to be one of the main reasons for administering them.
So they're really screwing themselves here by continuing to push this. This is going to dismantle, I think, the entire system eventually. If these TRAs and the radicals that are involved in this, if they were smart, they would quietly back off. Because what's going to happen down the line is these more and more of these doctors are going to be sued for malpractice. Kaiser is currently being sued over this transition care for minors. They're being sued for it actively right now. I think even the liberal side is going to eventually have to settle and say, oh, we were wrong. Maybe we shouldn't have done this. Maybe we took it too far. Where you're giving them cross-sex hormones, where you're giving them puberty blockers, where you're subjecting them to even surgeries. And that's the other thing, is that this community has lied about that, said it wasn't happening, then only said it was happening a little bit when it was happening all the time. The double mastectomy thing is very real. And there's been 14, 15, 16-year-old girls doing this. For the parents out there that are pushing this with their kids, applauding it, really jumping in the deep end, advertising it all over the internet that they have a trans kid, I don't feel bad for them. I really, really don't. And they need to be looked into, I think, further as far as what's going on up here mentally. Why would you want your kid to be put through this to begin with? And what you're putting them through is making them more miserable. They should be in a therapist's office. I understand kids can be dysphoric. Absolutely. I think I may have been one of those kids at one point. And thank God I didn't grow up in this era, because I'd be trans. I would 100% be trans. I almost guarantee it that I would have been, I don't know that my mother would have allowed for that, honestly, though. But if somehow I could get away with it, I probably would have done it, because I would have been convinced by this radical activism that I needed to change, being that I was a tomboy, being that I, once I got to be, in my late teens, I learned that I was a lesbian, and I would have connected those things together and said, oh, it's trans, because that's what they're doing. And, and if I say I'm trans, I must be, right? Because that's the logic that they're basing this stuff off of. They're not pushing back. They're not giving quality mental health care. Now, there's a lot of people out there that are on the radical side that are, getting all upset about this. They're exaggerating what happened. They're making it sound like that, trans people are under attack again. When all of my trans friends, by the way, every single one of them is fine. Nothing bad has happened. They're living their lives. They're very happy. What they're not happy about is this trans kid stuff. One of the things where they really screwed up with this case, let me show this to you. So Justice Alito asked the following question: are there individuals who are born male, assigned male at birth, who at one point identify as female, but then later come to identify as male? And likewise, for individuals who are assigned female at birth, at some point identify as female, identify as male, but later come to identify as female. Are there no such people? Mr. Strangio, there are such people. I agree with that. Justice Alito says, so it's not an immutable characteristic, is it? Well, then there you have it. Playing around with identity politics, this is what you get. This is what you get when you don't stop. They get caught in the circle of ideology. They can't even, the people that are preaching it can't even keep up with it. You know, they're calling this a major blow to the trans community, right? And I agree. And it is a blow because this is outright freaking embarrassing for them that they took this all the way to the Supreme Court over trans kids. Those two words should not be in the same sentence ever. I mean, keep it up because you're just going to keep making it worse for yourself, and you're going to eventually be completely exposed for all the lies that you told, all the kids that have been hurt by this care, and the doctors that are responsible here as well, including that Johanna Olsen Kennedy person. They should be put up on charges, in my opinion, or something. Something needs to happen there, that they would do research like that, realize how bad of an outcome it is for them, and then hide it from the world. That is evil. That is absolutely evil. And I can't even. This is why everybody left the community. This is why everybody's pissed. That's why everybody has these channels now out here talking about this stuff. Because of the lies, because of the deception. If they had just kept these things to a minimum and they weren't constantly screaming oppression and being victimized and, you know, screaming about trans kids all day long and really pushing that, using children as a prop to push the narrative, if they didn't do that, we wouldn't be where we are.
Today, the Supreme Court just ruled that transgender people have no constitutional protections whenever it comes to the medically necessary care that we need. In the Skrmetti ruling, they said that it is perfectly legal for a state to ban our health care. They claim that discriminating against our health care is not sex discrimination or...
People listen to people like this too. This person is not a journalist. I think they're actually kind of dangerous. The way they talk, and they talk in these very hyperbolic ways. They're making a blanket statement saying that this is affecting all trans people. This is affecting trans adults, essentially. They never even mention kids once. They always come at some angle for this type of thing, you know, and they don't really tell you the whole story or the whole truth. And they're banking on the fact that you're not going to look into the case yourself and use your own brain to think about these things and come to conclusions using critical thinking skills, right? So I don't know. This is just highly irritating, and you know, Bach Angel's on here reacting to it and just screaming, "It's about kids! Like, what are you talking about?" And you know, but this is all on the far leftist side. This is how they're talking, and this is how they're reacting to this Supreme Court decision. And it's like, I don't understand, first of all, why they're so shocked. They shouldn't be shocked by this. Kids should not be involved in this type of care. And there's not enough evidence to suggest that it's been helping anybody. There's more evidence to suggest that it's been hurting kids.
Trans discrimination. Instead, they're only discriminating against gender dysphoria.
It's kids. They're talking about kids.
They literally say that it's not discrimination because gender affirming care is banned for cisgender and transgender people as well.
Not people, kids.
And how on earth does that make sense?
Annoying.
It's trans people.
Oh my God. Like, she's not even telling the truth. They're not even telling the truth in this clip. They're looking right into the lens and they're lying about the decision of this case. This is another prime example of why they keep losing. If you keep lying and lying and lying, you're going to dig yourself a hole. People specifically went out and voted for Trump, by the way, because of this shit, because of the trans kids narrative, because of the trans women in women's sports thing. Literally. But they still sit there and gaslight and say, oh, no, that's not why, blah, 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 blah. Nope, that is literally why. I have talked to plenty of people that actually probably wouldn't have even voted for him if it wasn't for that. And now you're seeing the fallout. If you had just left kids alone and you didn't bring them into this mess and you didn't stop, if you stopped talking about it, stop bringing it up, stop going there and concentrate on something that actually matters. Okay? Why don't you talk about the fact that maybe there are kids that are dysphoric that need mental health therapy, that they're actually in crisis in their minds, that maybe do need some help? But that help should not involve medical interventions in the form of Lupron, surgeries, or hormones. So guys, let me know in the comments what you think about the outcome of this case. I really think that the radical left has become their own worst enemy. They really have. They just need to shut up. The backlash that they're going to get if they go after the parental rights part of this is also going to backfire. That is my prediction. I don't think that they're going to conclude that this is something that a parent has a right to do to their kid. In fact, I think what's going to end up happening is they're going to say that it's the opposite and that they don't have a right to do this to their kid. And that if you do this to your kid, you could be subject to child abuse charges. That is where I see this headed. I don't see them having a very robust, ironclad case to support that transing minors is okay. Plus, they can't consent. I don't understand how you could give a child a sex change and think that that is somehow moral or just. Anyways, guys, let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll see you next time.